Oh, you actually wanted to do this thing. Got it. Okay. Let's talk about a guy in the woods.
Absolutely. So we got Steve, but
Hello.
to everybody else, Steven.
That's
Steve
right.
to me, Steven to everybody else.
Steve to those in high school, Steven to everybody else. Because I am sophisticated at this point. Maturity.
Yeah, okay. I believe I just have a clip of you calling me a fuckhead on the other
Well,
side of this.
it doesn't mean I don't know how to have fun.
Oh, you do know how to have fun. That I know for sure, for certain. And honestly, that's a great segue because we're going to talk about a place that I have had a ton of fun in. Specifically, a ton of fun with you in. Because I have had the honor and the privilege of getting to go to Rome, Maine with you on a
Mhm.
number of occasions. So much so, in fact, that when we were talking about this last time and we were kind of looking at the Google map and everything, I still know my way around that place. I'm confident that I can get from your dock to
The
what's the
village.
name of the restaurant?
Uh, it's the village inn.
I'm confident I can get from your dock to the Village Inn still.
True. Yeah, I believe it. I mean, it's once you do it 5 times, it's 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 nailed in there. And you've been up there what 6 times, 8 times, like just to the
Gotta be.
house.
I've been going to Rome, Maine for so long. It was during the Fat Steve phase.
The Fat Steve face. Yeah.
I have photographic evidence of our friendship starting in 1995 in kindergarten.
Oh,
We were at a picture together on the bus, and I've been through all phases of Steve.
uh-huh. Skinny to fat to skinny to jack. No, I'm just kidding.
To absolutely yoked as fuck grapefruit arms, Steve, right now,
Back to fat because I have a kid and
because
no
we're
drive.
dads.
Yeah. Oh.
But the reason why I was bringing that up is, yeah, I got to needle you a little bit there, but if anyone listened to the last episode Steve was on, we've known each other our entire lives.
Yeah.
Essentially, we're both in our mid 30s right now, and we've known each other since early single digits, and been very, very close that entire time. Spent a lot of time together, just hanging with the boys, dude. And if there's a throughput to this podcast so far, it's hanging with the boys. The first episode, you and I talked about Pavlov's house, which is a bunch of Red Army guys hanging with
Mhm.
the boys, killing Nazis. Second episode was 1986 Miami-Dade FBI shootout, which, funny enough, one of the agents that was involved in the shootout only ended up there because he decided that going on the ride to go look for the suspect's car would be a fun time hanging out with his partner.
Mm, I like it.
He said that in an interview. He's like, I just thought it'd be a good time hanging out with Ed.
Huh.
And it turned into the worst day of his life, probably.
Well, that'll happen sometimes when you're hanging with boys.
This time around, this episode, nobody dies
Nobody
that I
died.
know of.
We just pour beer in milk cartons.
It was a water gallon. Oh, we weren't
Whatever.
dumb enough to use milk.
Oh, that's right.
Well, you're getting a early Hanukkah present from me. I've got a copy of Stranger in the Woods by Michael Finkel in the mail to you.
Mm,
I didn't read the book, but one of the main sources that I used for this episode was an interview that Michael Finkel did. I think Michael Finkel is the one journalist that got access to Christopher Knight because Christopher Knight was such a private guy.
mm,
And we'll talk about all of that, about kind of where his motivation came from and how his attitude was and everything like that. But Michael Finkel did a really good job of ingratiating himself with Christopher Knight and got some very honest answers out of it. And he described his book, Stranger in the Woods, as being over 99% accurate. If he wasn't 100% sure that what was going into the book was 100% factual, he left it out. And that's what he described. So
And for this recording, Chris Knight is the Maine Hermit, right? I'm assuming.
The North Pond Hermit.
North Pond Hermit. Dang. Spitting distance from where I was.
But to give you a little background, Christopher Thomas Knight, the North Pond Hermit, was born on December 7th, 1965. He was born into a rather large family, and they were very private. So he had four older brothers and a younger sister. Average middle class family from things that I've read and watched. They kind of spanned all aspects of education and intellect. It was a very intellectual family. So they described that during the day they were working on things, working on the house, working on electronics, working on cars, like learning like that vocational stuff. And then the evenings they would read all sorts of things, novels, poetry. Just a very private, insulated family. Not necessarily a problem, not necessarily weird, just very private. People that went to school with him described him as very intelligent. He did very well in school. He was socially awkward, bit of an outsider, very introverted, but he had a very strong mind. He was a very good problem solver. So he graduated from Lawrence High School in Fairfield, Maine, which is east of Rome, about 12, 13 miles straight line. So where he ended up camping is rather local to where he grew up.
Absolutely.
After high school, he went to a vocational school for electronics and became, ironically enough, an alarm technician, installing home alarms and car alarms, which served him very well over the next 27 years.
That's crazy. That makes so much sense, honestly.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And we are going to talk more about how clever this guy was. But before that, Christopher Knight, at the age of 20, just abandoned his job one day, drove aimlessly around. I had read that he had kind of gone on a road trip around the southeastern United States and had come back up to Maine and just drove into Rome, found a spot to park his car, took his keys out of ignition, put them in the center console, and walked in the woods and didn't come back for 27 years. He didn't have any sort of formal training. He didn't really prepare. It's not like he went in with bags and tents and winter clothes. He just kind of did this, which is nuts. And there's parallels that are drawn between Christopher Knight and Christopher McCandless, who was the story of Into the Wild.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Was that? Yeah, Into the Wild. Cool.
So the difference is,
I think he survived.
yes, that's like the only difference, other than their personalities, right? But yeah,
Barry.
Christopher Knight thrived.
Yeah.
And Chris McCandless didn't make it a year.
Sure.
This is dangerous shit that we're talking about. This is really, really tough shit to do. And the other thing was he never told his family that he was going to do this. He was just missing for 27 years. His family never filed a missing persons report. And they speculate that it was because they're just so private. And one quote that I heard was, they didn't want to make it a big to-do.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. They did go looking for him. They did have a concerted effort to try to find him. But he was just gone for 27 years. It's insane what this guy did. And Michael Finkel kind of went through the motivation to do this. And Christopher Knight didn't follow a formal religion. So it's not like he walked out there to become closer to God or anything like that. Never cited any abuse or fear or anything that he was running from. You know, it was more like he just didn't feel comfortable around other people and felt this urge to go do this. And then did it. It really was as simple as that.
Go live off the grid and fuck all y'all, man.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much, it really came down to he just didn't feel comfortable around other people. He felt most comfortable with himself.
With a pet squirrel and deer as friends. Great conversations, I will tell you.
So we'll get into that because there is a little bit of that I found some quotes from the cops that got to him. So spoiler alert, he gets busted. But
That's why there's a book written on him with his quotes in it.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's the only reason why there is.
I want to talk more about where he ended up settling, which is Rome, Maine. So Steve, you guys have had a house up there since 1998, 1999-ish, I think. Tell us a little bit about that.
So it's kind of beautifully in the middle of nowhere, Maine. It's right by Augusta, if those listening know where Augusta, Maine is. But, Augusta's probably about 20 minutes out. But there are a number of lakes up in the area. They're the Belgrade Lakes, and Great Pond is one of them. I don't know why it's called a pond, but it's a huge lake. It's phenomenal. It's huge and it's quiet. There's a lot of houses on it, but you go on the lake any random day of the week, even like a Saturday, and you might see 10 boats. It's amazing. It really is.
What's the depth of Great Pond? Doesn't it get down to like 90 plus
Yep.
feet?
Yep. Oh, absolutely. There are sections within it that get down to 90. Um, it's man, I think it's 90 to 100 that is actually the deepest spot. There's only like two or three areas across the lake
So
like that.
you got this giant lake, surface area wise, that's massive. Like
Yeah.
we have been out on that lake all day long, going into the other side, going pike fishing, which is just an excuse to throw lines in the water and drink beer.
It's it's a great excuse.
It's great. The best I tell the story whenever I talk about Romaine is the last time I was up there with all of us buddies, and we were all licensed. We
Uh-huh.
all did have fishing licenses, but we were boarded by Maine Fish and Game, and it was just that weird thing where like some of us had licenses that were like a day older than other people because like people showed up a day ahead and
Yeah.
like a day behind. So the people that had the lines in the water were all properly licensed at the time.
Uh-huh.
We somehow had all of the beer hidden. We didn't have any of it out. So the
Yeah.
dude that boarded the boat was like, "Can I just see your life jackets?" And you're like, "Yeah, they're right here." And he's like, "I see your licenses." We're like, "Yeah, right here." He's like, "All right,
Okay.
cool." And he was like our age, and he's like, "Cool, all right." And he got
Yeah.
back on his little like tugboat thing, like that one person like raft thing that
Uh-huh.
he had. You know,
Yes, he just wanted to go fishing himself, but
I guarantee it. He was just like, because he asked us, he's like, "Are you catching anything?" Like he kind
yeah.
of, you know. So then, like 2 hours later, that giant police boat that's all blacked out was like trailing us for like 5 minutes and then fucked
Mhm.
off. I guarantee it's because that dude on that little raft was like, "Yeah, I already checked them. They're cool."
Yeah, 100%. 100%. But yeah, man, our place in Rome, we still have it. It's beautiful. It's this tiny little, two bedroom plus a loft and a living room slash kitchenette ish uh, cabin, and it's right on the water. It's beautiful. It's all made of wood, so it's pretty, but it's this little slice of heaven that you go down this dirt road. I mean, you first off you go kind of to the middle of nowhere. You pass a little village, whereas where you fill up on gas, you get your groceries, and then you keep traveling into the middle of nowhere. Then finally you go down this it's probably a mile long dirt road that takes you to a number of cabins in a small association. You park up the hill a little bit because you can't park by the house. You have to walk down to the house. There's a what, 10-yard set of stairs that take you down to it. We talked about this before. I mean, the moment you get there, the moment you step out of the car, like your heart rate just It slows down. You take a deep breath. It's just so calming and peaceful. Again, I'm going to keep saying that. And
Knowing that when you step out of that car, you're not getting back in that
yeah,
car for 3, 4 days.
uh-huh.
And
Oh,
that, generally speaking, when I've got there has been at night. And just
yeah.
that crisp, cold air.
Hmm.
And one of my one of my clearest memories of Rome is that parking area that you described, and you look straight up and you
Oh,
see
all the stars.
it's so many stars you can't discern any constellations, nothing, because it's so clear. There's no light pollution. It's such a thick wooded area. Those stairs that you described, you
Hmm.
can very easily just eat shit and break your neck down those.
And people have.
And
Oh,
then you get your water from the
yeah.
side of the hill.
Yeah.
It's just it's amazing. It's just such a great place. And if I could add a few things, so something about Rome, it is a very quiet place. It is a kind of insulated place. Really the only reason to go to Rome is for recreation.
Yeah.
It's a
Just-
perfect spot. And that's what it caters to. It caters to that 3 season kind of family that's doing hiking, kayaking, fishing, all that outdoor stuff that people love to do in that lakes region there. But it's very sparsely populated from a permanent resident standpoint. So it swells in the summer months and it kind of ebbs in the fall and winter. Now, have you been there in the off season?
Yeah, no, I've definitely been up there in the winter. I mean, we shut the water off, so it's not super habitable for long periods. Obviously, you can bring water in and you can go shit in the woods, but it's like it's not a place you want to be for probably more than a couple days in the winter. And it snowed in. It's
That's
true.
a big problem.
Yeah,
That's that dirt road. If you
yeah,
get snowed in, you're going to
yeah.
be snowed in. And even in the summer, we're talking July, August, summer months, on a clear night with no clouds, it'll touch the 30s at night.
Oh yeah.
So in the morning, you'll wake up and it's too cold to just step outside. You got to make sure you've got some heavier clothes. And the fog that's just coming off of the lake because the lake is warm, it just completely clouds the whole area like a smoke screen. And all you hear is the loons, and it's perfect. Like you said, I've been at least 6 times, probably closer to 10 by now. I can still smell what your parents camp. And for anybody who's listening right now, a camp is a structure by a body of water, to quote the comedian Bob Marley.
Bob Marley.
I can still smell that place and,
Yeah.
you know where to park the car, how to navigate those steps in the dark, and thinking about wandering days. And just, I think about it. It's just such great memories. And when I heard this story the first time and found out it was from Rome, I freaked the fuck out. So I kind of became obsessed with this story, as a lot of people have. So one thing I found when I was researching this, there is a shit ton of YouTube videos, shorts, podcasts about the North Pond Hermit. People love this story. And
Hmm.
I love this story. But I love this story because my buddy has a spot right there.
Right there.
I
Yeah.
mean, we were sleeping across the street from this guy. To weave back
Back. Yeah.
onto the road, like another Maine story when I almost killed both of us trying to pass that
Oh,
truck.
fuck yeah, dude. That was exciting. I was hoping
But
you were gonna bring that up.
yeah, I mean, you know Rome very well. You know what this guy was in. Have
It's
you walked the trail? Have you done hiking in Rome? Like, have you ever gone on the trails or?
honestly, I feel really bad saying no, but no. And there's actually so many trails around our house. I used to run down the roads, but no, I never went on any of the trails.
Well, try it someday and
Yeah.
keep in mind that somebody spent 27 years out in those woods because Michael Finkel who wrote the book Stranger in the Woods, describes the campsite location as the locals call it the Jarzy. It is like a giant Brillo pad, the densest, most disorienting, pathless, boulder choked forest that is too difficult for even deer to walk through. Dude, I've been in woods in northern New Hampshire hunting in blaze orange, right? So you've gone hunting before. You know that blaze orange. There's nothing natural that's that color, and that's on purpose. It's so you can see people. I've been within first down distances of my dad and my uncles in those woods, and I can't see them. I can't hear them. I've lost my sense of direction because it's all stuff like literally in front of your face, inches in front of your face. You're ducking and weaving in and out. It's bizarre how quickly and how thick and how disorienting that woods is. And that is what this guy was living in. So it's a perfect spot to hide. When I first learned about this story, it was like, well, how could he possibly not have got found? Like, how did he spend 27 years undetected? Then when I've seen pictures and footage of his campsite and then going with my own experience, he was invisible. He was a ghost out there because where he was so well hidden. So he also figured out how to use that to his advantage because he did not want to get found. He wanted to be out there on his own. He just wanted to be left alone. So he purposefully tried to hide himself and disguise himself. And that wasn't just his campsite. It was the movements that he made. It was when he decided to move. It was how he decided to move. So one of the main sources of material that I drew for this episode was a YouTube video that The Atlantic did, which was all interviews with local Rome residents.
Okay.
There's obviously people that own land out there and live out there. A lot of hunters, a lot of fishermen.
Sure.
They described seeing his footprints. But one hunter described noticing his footprints were backwards. In the sense that he walked backwards.
Just like he would backtrack his steps so he didn't leave too much of a footprint, or just he walked backwards? I don't get it.
I would say potentially both, but what this hunter said is he legitimately walked backwards across a street. So he would literally, instead of walking like a normal person, like just walking straight, he would literally turn his back to the road, walk backwards across the road to disguise which direction he was going and leaving from. So the deer hunter described it as when you're walking, your heel hits first. And so in the snow, you can see a heel drag and then your footprint. So he didn't see that. He saw the toe print being deep and no heel drags. So he's like, this guy's walking backwards across the road. So
Okay.
he was trying to disguise which way he was moving and which way he was coming from. Also, where his campsite was surrounded by a boulder field. And by boulder field, I don't mean like stacked high, like, you know,
Sure.
like city walls. I'm talking like on the ground. You have to navigate boulders. So he would only walk on rocks and on fallen trees to disguise his footprints.
Hmm.
So you were bringing up he could have a pet squirrel friend and deer friends and stuff. So the landowner said, deer really don't go through there. It's too thick for a deer to go through. He might only see 1 to 2 moose a year wandering through this area.
Sure.
So it was just so incredibly thick. He also never lit a fire.
Yeah.
Never lit a campfire. He would use propane.
Interesting. Okay.
He would only use a propane camp stove to cook and melt snow for water or
Sure.
purify water.
Yeah.
He didn't use it for warmth. This guy didn't use anything other than himself to keep warm, which is fucking crazy.
Yeah, but at the same time, the audience and myself are asking how. How can that be? For like honestly, like Like you would need something to survive the winters up there. So like he just wrapped himself up and just prayed that he made it through the next day.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Idiot.
one of the law enforcement officers that was instrumental in his arrest and his investigation was Maine State Trooper Diane Perkins Vance. And she described that Christopher Knight knew he needed 8 propane tanks to survive from January 1st to April 10th every year. But what he would do in the winter, when he would go to sleep, he would wake up around 2:30 a.m. every night. And every night when he woke up, he would pace his camp all night until the morning for warmth. Every night, every winter.
Ouch.
That's badass, dude.
Yeah. So he'd wake up at 2:30 and just start walking.
Just walk all night long.
And if he's surrounded by trees everywhere, it means probably not super windy, which sounds doable.
You are onto something. You hit something very important. So people that have been to the campsite have said that there's very little wind, but there's enough
Sure.
where you're getting the fresh air. It's keeping enough of the bugs away, but you're not getting that like piercing wind that's going to
Yeah.
suck the heat from you.
Just burn your skin too. I mean, it does that in the winter. The cold wind, especially, can just burn your skin. Just cold burns.
The spot that this guy picked is so romantically perfect. However, practically insanely hard to survive in.
Sure. Because there's nothing around you. I mean,
No.
not necessarily resource wise, but food, easily accessible, drinkable water that's not perfectly contained for you on the side of the mountain, like ours was.
But just the cold, man. Like I've never been up there to your spot in the winter, but I went to school way north of that spot in New York where it was in the winter it was single digits
Sure.
mostly. It
Yeah.
would get down to the negative 20s at times. It was fucking brutal. And this is like, me living in a house with clothes, with a vehicle. I've done a good amount of hunting in my life and being out deer hunting in stands in October, November, December, goose hunting in January. I've been outside in the cold. I've been ice fishing, things like that. But again, this is modern preparation with a purpose for a temporary amount of time that I knew I was going to be out there. So he kind
Yeah.
of walks into there when he was 20 years old, and how he managed to do this without much, like, from what I heard, no mountaineering experience, no hunting experience, no sort of formal camping. Like, I don't believe he'd ever really done primitive or dispersed camping before. He really figured all of this out by himself.
Either he's going to be able to survive out there, or he's just going to die and no one's going to find him.
So, only 2 people found him, to my knowledge, from what I've
Sure.
seen.
Throughout the 20-ish years.
So, Christopher Knight said he only spoke to one person during 27 years. It was a hiker passing him on a path. They were just on a trail and they said, hi.
It's like, you're hiking too? Oh, okay. I mean, honestly, that's what the hiker thought. It was like, yeah, he's coming back from somewhere.
The other guy was one of those deer hunters. So, the deer hunter was chasing a deer and stumbled upon the camp. To my knowledge, this is the only person that said they actually found this camp. And he said he didn't even realize he was there until he was closer than 10 feet to the edge of the camp.
Hmm.
And I buy this 100% because, like I said about my experience in northern New Hampshire,
Yeah.
it's so dense, it is so claustrophobic. You're talking about navigating 6 to 12 inches in front of your face at all times. trying to get through this stuff. So he's chasing this deer, stumbles upon the edge of the camp, and meets Christopher Knight. Their only interaction was Christopher Knight bowed to him. And he said he bowed back. They didn't say anything. And he just backed away, kind of realized who he was, and thought this guy was a Vietnam veteran, and thought it would be better just to leave him alone. And he did. There was this understanding between this deer hunter and Christopher Knight. Like, I'm not going to bother you. I'm not going to blow up your spot. I'm not going to tell anybody about this. All right, I'm just going. I'm back away. I'm backing away. And I also think Christopher Knight held up his end of that bargain, because in none of the articles or the Michael Finkel interview that I saw did he bring up that he had that interaction with that deer hunter. And I buy it that that deer hunter did meet him. So I think he was saying, when he said I only spoke to one person, he didn't mention that he met that other deer hunter. I think there was a mutual understanding between the two of them. We're just going to leave this one alone.
I mean, I get it. I mean, and if it took the guy until he was within 10 feet, I mean, you're close. You're
Yeah.
really close to each other at that point.
And he only knew he was coming up to some campsite because he heard a radio.
Interesting.
So Christopher Knight, because of his electronics experience, did rig himself up with portable radios. He had a little black and white TV. He had actually run an antenna up into a tree. He had access to the outside world and didn't shy away from it. He actually enjoyed listening to the radio.
Sure.
He didn't really watch TV. From what I saw, it drained his batteries too much. But when he was arrested, he knew who the Kardashians were. So it's not like he shied away from the world. It's not like he rejected the world. He just didn't want to be around other people. And like I said, he was a really intellectual guy. He was very good at problem solving. So that brings me to the show Alone. People that do well on Alone describe that situation as a puzzle. You have to gather the pieces, fit them together, and if you can do that, you then solve this puzzle and you can thrive out in the wilderness. So you have to figure out food, water, shelter, warmth. You got to figure out your terrain, your surroundings, things you need to be worried about, like predators, sickness, and things like that. And it takes time to figure this out. You have to sit and observe, trial and error. And that's all Christopher Knight had, was time.
Yep.
And he really dedicated himself to figure this all out. And that will come back at the end. I'll talk about what people observed when they arrested him. But this guy, he didn't survive. He thrived in this area. But one thing that he did do, the primary source of how he ended up thriving, was theft.
Yeah. Well, makes sense.
It does. And Christopher Knight described this as like an animal. So you notice in areas like that, you have animals like bears, raccoons, whatever, that'll rifle through your trash. Why? Because it's more efficient to go up to a trash can and grab something out of there than it is to try to hunt something. So he described this as, this is my most efficient way to survive in this area. He knew it was wrong. He knew that he was committing a crime and he felt guilty about it. When asked about whether he knew what he was doing was right or wrong, Knight said, every time I was very conscious that what I was doing was wrong. I took no pleasure in it, none at all. My adrenaline was spiking, my heart rate was soaring, my blood pressure was high, I was always scared when stealing, always. I wanted it to be over as quickly as possible. So this kind of brings me to where I have a little bit of a gray area in here, right? Because from a survival perspective, practically speaking, what he is doing is what he should be doing. There's resources available. I'm going to take the resources.
Yep.
But this is where he did frighten people. there were people concerned about some guy wandering around the woods, breaking into homes, stealing their stuff. He did, at least one occasion, break into a home that was occupied and was chased out. There was people on that Atlantic video that said that they heard other people talking about, if I find him, I'm going to shoot him. You know, it's very violating to have somebody do that inside your house. But on the flip side, from what I've heard, he was never violent. He was never damaging things. Like, he wasn't smashing windows, kicking in doors, things like that. He would pick locks, find camps that were unlocked, defeat the alarm system. He was very surgical about it. And what he stole was very intentional.
Bag of chips and left.
It's funny that you bring that up, because one woman describes catching him on her security camera as taking out a bag of chips, eating some out of the bag, closing the bag back up, and putting it back on the shelf.
Thank you. That's what I needed.
But that's what he took.
Sure.
Was the only things that he needed. And people described opening their freezer and having nothing in their freezer.
Sure.
But their personal items weren't touched.
Yeah.
He did take some money, but he wasn't like ripping off jewelry and rifling through all this stuff and trashing people's camps. And from what I've seen, he never took homemade food. If it was wrapped and he could tell it was homemade, he didn't touch it.
Sure.
He was taking Costco things, frozen things. Apparently he loved hot dogs.
I mean, hot dogs are like the easiest thing. As long as they stay like semi-cold and good to eat, you just eat them cold out of the package and you'll be just fine. I mean, like, yeah. And they're still good.
Again, this comes back to how intelligent he was, because he knew that he needed those high calorie,
Sure.
high in fat foods. He took a lot of chocolate and candy, cereals, breads. He did take beer, because this is Maine.
Because he knew what he was doing. Come on now.
One person was like, he took the Budweiser, but he didn't much like the Miller Lite. He left the Miller Lite, but he took the Budweiser.
Yeah. Miller, man. Would have been better.
Of course, the propane tanks.
Yeah.
What's funny is that he took batteries, a lot of batteries.
Sure.
And one guy described as, he didn't take my flashlights, but he took the batteries out of the flashlights.
He took the batteries out. Yeah. I mean, that's what mattered.
He also took Game Boys.
Cool. Got to be occupied throughout the day somehow. And yeah, Pokemon.
What do
man.
you and I do in Maine when it's raining?
Play video games?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's nothing
Hang out
else.
in the loft
Yeah.
with the boys,
The
playing
boys.
some video games.
Yeah. Yeah, on the tiny little screen.
I remember going through the iterations of Sega, N64,
Yeah.
PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
So Knight would steal Game Boys to keep himself occupied, like you said. But he only took Game Boys 2 generations or older, so as, quote, not to deprive kids of their Christmas gifts. Still, I'd be pretty pissed if you took my Game Boy.
I'd be pretty pissed if you took my like N64, but yeah.
But
Right.
there is some honor, for lack of a better term, in that.
I mean, if it's something brand new, you'd be pissed. Something brand new, yeah, you'd be livid. But yeah, I mean, couple generations old, absolutely.
But he was a boogeyman, you know? People were nervous about this guy, and I can't blame them. There were people that kind of figured out what he was doing and understood this guy and kind of put the pieces together and realized, like, he's not being violent. He's not finding people. He definitely doesn't want to be around people. He's not breaking our things. He's not stealing our valuables so much as like our food. So I heard stories that people would leave coolers out and leave a note on them saying, "Hey, take this. Don't go in the camp." You can have whatever you want in this cooler, and he would honor that.
mean, love it. He's there for food, and maybe a couple of drinks. I mean, yeah. Uh, Send him off with some nourishment, and why would he have any reason to break in unless he really needed batteries? I mean,
Which he did.
which
And
he
propane
did.
tanks.
And
A lot
well,
of propane tanks.
propane you can find outside. I don't know many people that wouldn't leave their propane tanks outside. But
Yeah, I would have put my propane tank inside a
right,
camp. There's also stories of him stealing people's boats and then putting them back.
sure, yeah. I need this for a second. And thank.
Exactly. I'm just going to borrow this.
Uh-huh. Don't worry, I'll bring it back. I just need to be somewhere, all right?
Yeah, man.
Because I got places to be, apparently.
So let's talk about the end of this story. We're going to talk about how Christopher Knight got caught and ultimately brought him down. So he was burglarizing camps around the area, the single family camps, but he was also burglarizing the Pine Tree Camp in Rome, Maine, which is a camp for special needs.
When he says camp, it's not like a camp, like a cabin. It's like many people go in this camp for a long period of time.
It's a summer camp.
Yeah.
And I think that was also part of why law enforcement was really going after him. Was I do think that there was a sense that, like, you shouldn't be fucking with this camp.
Yeah.
And he was going into the food storage facility, like the coolers and stuff, and taking food out of the camp. But this caught the attention of law enforcement in the area, specifically Game Warden Sergeant Terry Hughes. So Sergeant Hughes, with the permission of the Pine Tree Camp, started rigging up motion sensors and cameras inside the camp. And the motion sensors actually rang to Sergeant Hughes's phone. So on April 4th, 2013, one of the motion sensors was triggered, and Sergeant Hughes was alerted, and he pretty much immediately knew that it was the Hermit. Got up out of bed, rushed to Pine Tree Camp, and found Christopher Knight burglarizing the Pine Tree Camp. Sergeant Hughes and the other officers arrested Christopher Knight without incident. From all accounts of Christopher Knight in custody, was a model inmate. He fully cooperated with the investigation. He was very respectful, very forthcoming, very truthful. He wasn't a problem at all.
Like, yeah, I've been doing wrong for a very long time. I'm surprised you guys finally caught me. Good job.
Pretty much.
Well done.
Going back to Knight's quote about stealing, he knew it was wrong, and he knew it hurt him to do it. He still did it, you know.
Trying to survive.
So when the gig was up, the gig was up.
Yeah. And it took them how long? How long did the gig last?
So it's funny you say that. So Knight walked into the woods the same year that Bill Buckner let the ball go through his legs.
Oh, Jesus.
And he walked out when he was arrested when Grand Theft Auto 5 was released. 27 years.
That's just, I mean, that's like my entire life.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
I mean,
at that point, yes.
Yeah.
We were 23 years old when Christopher Knight was arrested.
Got it. Okay. Wow.
When Knight was arrested and questioned for how long he had been in the woods, his response was, "When was Chernobyl?"
When was Chernobyl? God, so he went into the woods before I was born, before we were born. Entire life in Maine to that point. Wow.
You were sleeping within a strong driver distance of him your entire existence in Maine.
Entire time.
The entire time.
That is absolutely nuts.
Yes, with somebody who had no formal experience, no preparation, figured out that puzzle, figured out how to survive in Rome, Maine, albeit a gorgeous, fantastic place to be,
Yeah.
but a very difficult place to survive like he did.
Yeah.
There's no question about that, how difficult that must have been. So, after officers arrested Knight brought him to his campsite. The officers that followed Knight to his campsite, one of them recollected, I was in shock, to be honest with you. It was an overwhelming experience. It's very difficult to articulate. He was sitting up on the bucket where he sits all day and he was looking up into the sky. I asked him why he was looking up. He was identifying eagles, or he was talking about the eagles. He knows how many eagles fly over his campsite every day.
I mean, yeah, what else do you have to do? Like, you're just living and learning about everything around you. And the slightest thing that wouldn't even like distract you or me, or like, no, phase isn't even the right word, but wouldn't even draw attention from us, up in the sky is, it's stuck out to him every single day because it's the only thing changing.
So one of the locals said that the news had said that he sat on a bucket and watched a mushroom grow for 2 years.
It's probably not terribly
I don't think that's necessarily true that he stared at a mushroom for 2 years, but I
wrong.
do believe he observed a
Yeah,
particular mushroom grow
absolutely.
in his area for a couple years. And that bucket, like they mentioned, that was Sergeant Hughes that said that quote, talking about a bucket that he sat on. Another officer that followed Knight to his campsite described him as moving like a cat through the woods. So you got to think that these officers, these are game wardens, these are border patrol, these are guys that understand how to move through the woods. They're also locals. So I've hunted for most of my life. I've been in woods like this. I've hunted the Northeast. I feel very comfortable moving through the woods. And even me moving intentionally through the woods, I make a shitload of noise. And I'm breaking limbs. I'm getting hung up on stuff. These are experienced hunters, experienced outdoorsmen, either recreationally or by profession, and they couldn't keep up with him.
True.
They had said that Knight had memorized the entire area. He memorized where to step, how to move. It was just incredible to watch him get to his campsite in an area that Michael Finkel described as like a Brillo pad. I look, Christopher Knight, man, I good on you. I have no idea how you did it other than time and observation and just constant trial and error and hardship. I don't know if there's any other way you could possibly do that, but I'll never be able to navigate the woods like you did.
Not at all. No, that's crazy.
So after Knight was arrested, he fully cooperated with the investigation. He estimated that he committed over 1,000 burglaries, about 40 per year. And he would do this during the transition seasons. So he would do this in the fall and the spring mostly. So if you think about when your family is most active up at your camp, it's during the summer. So he purposely tried to avoid that. And then in the spring and the fall, he had to stock up. He had to stock up for the winter and then stock up after the winter. And he was trying to avoid people being at their places.
Yep, makes sense.
One thing the Knight said was he doesn't want anybody to romanticize him because he knew what he was doing was wrong and he deserved to be in jail. He truly believed that. And he was also afraid that his name would be in the paper because he was embarrassed about what he did.
Hmm.
So, unfortunately for Knight, this story has blown up into quite a thing.
Yeah. He has a nickname that everybody knows.
And everybody knows. And look, I looked up Pavlov's house, our first episode, and then the 1986 Miami FBI shootout. There are more podcasts about Christopher Knight than there are those other two, for sure. The story is just captivating. And he was on the front page of the local paper for 8 straight days.
Man's worst nightmare.
Though his worst nightmare. So, when all was said and done,
Right.
Knight was sentenced to 7 months in prison, and
Sure.
all but a week was time served. So while he was awaiting trial, they counted that towards his sentence, and the
Sure.
judge actually noted that anything more than that would be cruel. And Knight did suffer in prison, so Finkel did observe that he did have a rough time in prison when he was exchanging letters with him and when he was interviewing him.
Sure.
So the Knight did try to like converse with other inmates by bringing up the supermoon, and other inmates just didn't want to talk to him about that, didn't understand what was going on, just thought he was like a total weirdo. But what ingratiated Finkel with Knight was talking about the supermoon and what it was like camping under the supermoon. So Knight felt comfortable bringing Finkel in. Like, he kind of thinks like me, he's kind of like me. And they had a correspondence via handwritten letters. And that's how he ended up with all this information. So he also had to pay $2,000 in restitution.
Which he didn't have.
Sure. Um, and his camp was ultimately dismantled, and law enforcement gathered up a lot of the things that he had stolen from the camp and put it up for auction.
Sure.
And the vast, vast majority was never claimed. So I think that kind of speaks to a lot of the stuff that he stole, like propane tanks, books, food, milk crates. If you look at pictures of his camp,
Yeah, right now, actually.
it's all stuff you need and nothing you don't, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So I think people just wrote it off, and there seems to be an understanding with the residents of Rome and Christopher Knight
Sure.
that he wasn't necessarily a bad guy. He did things that were wrong. He did scare people. He absolutely did. He did cause a lot of anxiety, but there was an understanding there. Over time, Finkel interviewed Knight via handwritten letters. He did go visit him unannounced in jail and described the visit as being extremely awkward at first, that Knight was not real keen on talking to him. Eventually, he became comfortable and did talk to him. So Finkel wrote an article first and then published the book. So Knight described Finkel's article as, quote, fair. And then after the book was published, the only thing that Knight asked was to be left alone. He wasn't asking for any royalties from it. He didn't want any money from it. He just wanted to be left alone. And Finkel thinks that he honored this because he was the only journalist that had that type of access to Knight. And after that, because Finkel had the whole story, everybody else left him alone. There's nothing more to dig into.
Yeah. This is his story of his life. It's not that there's anything glamorous to talk about. He survived alone for a very, very long time. Yes, he robbed people, but of very minor things.
So another thing that I think helped his case in terms of his I would say rather light but also fair sentence was he didn't shy away from admitting that it's time for him to reintegrate into society, and he didn't resist reintegrating into society.
Sure. I mean, after so
Well,
many years, he probably, just was kind of scared of reintegrating, honestly.
I think Finkel said that Knight never felt scared in the woods.
Sure.
Even when he ran out of food, even when he was cold, even when he ran out of propane, he never felt scared. He felt at home, he felt at peace.
Yeah.
I do think you're right, though. I think that the idea of having to be in modern society was something he didn't want to do.
Yeah.
However, to my knowledge, Christopher Knight has reintegrated into modern society as an auto mechanic, still living in central Maine, and lives a quiet life as much as he can. So I want to share a couple of quotes with you from Christopher Knight just to cap this off. So some journalists had asked if he had gained any deep insights during his time in the woods. He replied, "Get enough sleep."
Man. Yeah, that's something I have to do way better of.
Yeah, so I'll let you go in a minute here because of that. But to cap this whole episode off, I want to share a quote from Christopher Knight about his experiences during his 27 years living in Rome, Maine.
Sure.
It's complicated. Solitude bestows an increase in something valuable. I can't dismiss that idea. Solitude increased my perception. But here's the tricky thing. When I applied my increased perception to myself, I lost my identity. There was no audience, no one to perform for. There was no need to define it for myself. I became irrelevant.
And in a weird way, while as it might be incredibly scary, probably a weight off his shoulders because he was forced back into society versus him having to step back into society and reintegrate on his own versus being just forced into it. You know, driven from the firehouse. You don't have a choice. So, okay, this is happening. Accept it.
So one thing about Knight is he said he never got sick. And he purposefully did that because getting sick would involve human intervention.
Sure.
So I think if he had gotten sick and needed medical care or gotten hurt and needed medical care, I think that's what you're describing, right?
Sure.
Like, shoot, now I gotta figure out a way to reintegrate. I'm gonna be asked a lot of questions. The fact that he got caught and had to face legal ramifications and was put in jail and then had to get through that whole process and get out of that process forced his hand. I think it was Finkel that said Christopher Knight is just fine. He's going to be fine in terms of going back into quote modern society because he is so smart and he's so capable. He lived on his own for 27 years without anybody else's help. He can do this other thing, which is be an auto mechanic in central Maine and just live a quiet life. He'll be all right.
But I bet you, no, I bet you, like, it wouldn't surprise me if, getting caught by the cops. Yeah, I mean, you're forced into society, and I think that's easier to accept. I think that would be easier to accept for him, for someone who's been disassociated for such a long time. But I bet you anything that if he really did get sick, if he really did get hurt, and had to go to a hospital in order to survive, I bet you he wouldn't have.
I
I,
think you're right.
I bet you he wouldn't have. And
I think it would have freaked him out. I think he
yeah,
would have resisted it. I think he
yeah,
would have tried to find his way back.
I bet you he would
And
have just
then
died out there. I bet you he would have just stayed.
he said he was. That
Yeah,
was his plan.
for sure. I mean, I'm just saying, I think he obviously loved being alone, and if he had to go back into society on his own free will because he was hurt potentially or sick, I bet you he wouldn't have. And I bet you he would have probably just tried to, stay
So,
out there, tough it out, and probably died in the process.
yeah. He said something to that effect that
Sure.
he kind of chalked it up to whatever happens to me out here happens
This is
to
the
me,
life I
and I'm
chose.
totally okay with that. This is what I
Yeah.
want. He described being out in the woods as being totally at peace, totally at one with his surroundings, and just content. I think it was very telling that he said he was never scared, and I don't think that's bravado. I don't think that's him flexing or peacocking. I truly believe he was not scared. That
Sure.
dude was not afraid of being on his own out in the woods. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I've thought about like, could I do something like that? Like, could I go on alone and make it and try to survive? Like, how long could I be out there? You know, but I'd want to come home.
Well,
I really like him. I really like this story. I I don't like that people were anxious and scared of somebody creeping around the woods because that would freak me out. That would absolutely freak me out. Knowing that I would have a hard time sleeping in your camp thinking that someone might be prowling around and might break in, at any given night.
Yeah.
But after learning about Christopher Knight and his experiences and stuff, I really like the guy. I also think that his story is his story, even though I'm retelling it and it's been retold a million times. I almost feel guilty doing it because it's not my story, it's his. It's how he wanted to live his life. He didn't want this to come out. He didn't want anybody to know about this.
And now he's famous.
In some sense.
Yeah, in some sense.
But I love this story so much, dude, just because, like I've said it 1,000 times and I'll keep saying it. I've slept within a freaking jogging distance of that guy.
Yeah.
And every time I've been out on the dirt road that leads to your camp, out on Great Pond, and looking at the surrounding area, and just I've thought about that a million times, like setting up camp and chopping wood, building bonfires, cooking food. Like I've thought about that every single fucking time, and then come to find out that there's a dude that did that.
That did that.
And he did it right there. But he didn't even get to go to Days.
I bet you he went to Days. I wouldn't doubt he went to Days.
I guarantee he never did.
Yeah, just a little too far.
No, he didn't want to get seen. He didn't want to be around other people.
Well, there are other houses there. But yeah, I mean, it's not exactly, well, foresty, I guess. There's still too many people in the village. It's the village.
Right.
So.
Right. So this is roughly where your camp is. Your spot is at the 0 mark. I'm not going to say the number over the recording, but even Fat Steve could have run there.
Yeah, seriously. My God. It really is so close. And we're talking like you can drive there in 5 minutes.
Oh, no. Oh, no. You could
Like,
drive there in less than 5 minutes. Easy.
well, I mean, thinking about turning on your car and but yeah, no, that's so close. Yeah.
It is so close to where you guys are. So, first problem for Christopher is that this is private land. So he is trespassing.
Yeah, sure. Well, minor details.
But look how close he is to civilization.
Sure.
Now, we talk about Rome being sparsely populated and being a rural area, but this isn't like Narnia.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There are people that live there. There are people that live there year round. There are businesses that are open year round. He's close to all of this stuff. And like you said, there's trails everywhere.
Yeah, seriously. Disc golf course. Yeah. Know where a lot of this stuff is.
Of course you do.
Well, it's now we've had this cabin for over 20 years. Yeah, that's crazy to me. But we did a lot, but it's not like we really traveled a ton around the little area that we had. It's like we had this perfect little slice of heaven that that really isn't a whole lot much else to travel around and look at. But yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that there's a fair bit around here, and there's also this section that's just nothing.
Oh, of course.
And there he is. There's
Yeah.
a lot of sections of just nothing, but yeah,
Dude, when you and I were staying up playing friggin' Grand Theft Auto on a 4-inch screen
yeah,
TV in the loft, this guy is pacing his campsite trying to keep warm.
and legitimately, like that day, one of those days, we were
Within
on
screaming distance.
Yep. That's
That's
crazy.
just why. That's why I've become so obsessed with this story. Is it's this folk legend that made national news, and I was like, I'm on the other side of the road, hanging out with my best buds, having a grand old time.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So yeah, dude, this is something that I'm really happy I got to do here. Write a love letter to Rome, Maine. I love that place. No matter what, if I never get back there again, if I get back there again a million more times, it doesn't matter. I've been there. I've been on Crooked Island. I've been past the abandoned house. I've been pike fishing. I've been to the village inn. Like it's just all these memories, all these things that are so still so vivid about this place that's so special. And also, anybody that's listening, Romaine sucks. Don't go there.
Yeah, we don't want you there. So don't show up.